leading marketplaces, competitors, or ecosystem?
Well, maybe we can just start off by having each person introduce themselves and the marketplace that they work for, as well as what they think is the distinguishing feature of that marketplace, if you had to choose one, or maybe two.
I think I'm on the top of this little board here, at least on my computer. My name is Erick. I'm the founder of ArtBlocks, and we're concentrating on mostly on-chain generative NFT assets.
Amazing. Miguel, do you want to go next?
How's it going, guys? I'm Miguel Romero. I run digital communications at Nifty Gateway. Well, at Nifty, we call our NFTs Nifties, which are digital art and collectibles that people collect on the platform. We're curated, so that's a main difference between some of the other marketplaces on the NFT land. So it's good to be here today.
Great. Mattison?
Awesome, yeah, and I gotta apologize if I start coughing. I'm a little bit sick, so heads up about that. I actually work for ConsenSys as an NFT researcher. While we don't have a specific marketplace, we do have a joint venture called Palm.io, which is a side chain to Ethereum, where marketplaces will be built on top of it.
Exciting. Sebastien?
Hey everyone, I'm the CEO and co-founder of the Sandbox, which is a gaming virtual world where players and creators can make 3D assets and game experience and use NFTs. The marketplace is one of the key products together with our NFT maker or game maker, where artists can upload 3D assets that are in voxels and animated, and where game creators can buy them or collect them to use them with our game maker to publish experience into virtual land as part of our metaverse.
And Conlan?
Hello, I'm Conlan, CEO of Async Art. Async Art is an art marketplace built in Ethereum where creators can deconstruct their work into layers. And so layers are then tokenized, and you can have individual collectors own layers of a work, whether it's an image or a song. And then the creators can then imbue those layers with abilities so that collectors become part of the artwork themselves. So they can, state change or positional or rotate and actually manipulate the final overall work.
Yeah, very, very exciting. So maybe just the first question, which is the topic of this panel, how have you all found the space in general? Do you find that the different marketplaces are very competitive with each other, or the artists, and obviously people are reaching out to get attention, sale prices, but then it is a lot of artists kind of creating things a lot of times they're new. So where do you find the competitive edge? Where do you find the kind of collaborative edge? So maybe start with you, Mattison, because you're on the research side. So how would you see that from looking in at the space without necessarily having your own marketplace?
So I'm gonna have a different opinion, obviously, 'cause I don't run my own marketplace, or we don't run our own marketplace. I do view a lot of the marketplaces as directly competing with one another. They compete on a variety of factors, including effectively, I know artists and even the celebrities who have been entering that want to do NFTs. They want to know things like what's the web traffic of the actual marketplace I'll be auctioning my NFT. What's the distribution look like? How have sales gone successfully in the past? And I know, because I've talked and worked with some of these people in the past, that they are really trying to play the marketplaces off one another in deciding which path they want to go through, whether it be curated, whether it be open, and more importantly, how much effectively hype can the marketplace provide to their individual auction. Another area that I think the marketplaces significantly differentiate is the content storage of where the metadata related to that NFT is stored. And I think that will increasingly become a bigger issue. That's not on the business side at all. It's purely on the tech side. But there are a lot of differentiations between them, and I do view them as competitors.
Anyone else want to comment on that?
Sure. Well, I tend to differ. At least maybe it depends on the use case, but in the sense for the Sandbox marketplace for us are very complementary to what we are doing. They are really participating into the discovery for the main asset and NFTs that are being made on Sandbox, but then they drive new users who, for example, if we are talking about virtual lands, you can buy lands in Sandbox on our primary marketplace, which is either a map or a traditional marketplace where you see product by their thumbnail. But anyone who hear about these NFTs, they do not enter necessarily by Sandbox first. They just come from OpenSea or Rarible or others who are like more generic marketplaces and contribute to drive user base to Sandbox in general. So the fact that we are into a decentralized ecosystem is actually beneficial for us. And even better, we are leveraging the marketplace by launching specific items on auction on some of them to gain in visibility as well. So really, they are more partner than a competitor to us. Second thing is also like, we are definitely using and partnering with the marketplace to display their NFTs into our virtual world. So just allowing anyone who has an NFT using their URL on OpenSea, Rarible, or Nifty Gateway to display it into Sandbox, and then interact with their NFTs into new manner, visualize them into a 3D virtual world rather than the type of display you can see. So in that sense, we also participate into augmenting the experience that users can have with their NFTs, offering a new playground for them. And I think that make us really a more symbiotical relationship in that sense.
I'm gonna add to the competitive nature too, and thinking that, you know, right now when NFTs are kind of going through this crazy cycle, it feels a little different. I think that when things slow down a little bit, it'll feel a little bit maybe more competitive. For me, I haven't felt that. To me, there's like this dream where like someone drops on ArtBlocks and they've already dropped on Async and they've dropped on Nifty, whatever. And like, it's like they go and they do these rounds, just like it happens in real art. You know, they kind of go to different gallerists and they open in different cities. And so I think while the industry is small enough, which I know for us it's explosive, but like it's still tiny, especially in the real art world. I think there's this beautiful rotation, this beautiful kind of round that the artist is making, that it's almost like if they get to deploy on each of these marketplaces, they just get huge kudos for being accepted and for putting something together, especially for something like, you know, they can deploy a static image or an interactive GIF or something on a more traditional marketplace, but then you get to like Async, like it takes a lot of work to like put that together. Obviously for ArtBlocks, like it's like a different process. So to see somebody deploy on all of them, I think is beautiful. Eventually that'll become saturated and maybe we're going to see a little bit more of a competitive nature. But for now, it's like, it doesn't bring me any more joy. I mean, it can't bring me more joy than to like go and buy a piece on one of these other marketplaces that one of the artists that we've launched produces.
If I can add, to add on to that, I mean, you know, tokenized art, it's not the same as just pure digital art, right? So when people come into this space, doing the rounds in different marketplaces, they're seeing like, oh, here's what the potential is with this new medium. So like, it's in their best interest to just learn as an artist what's possible. And so, yeah, we've seen that. You know, we've seen artists come onto Async and then they get deeper into, you know, into blockchain and say, oh, I want to try some like on-chain art. And so the artist will go on to like, you know, ArtBlocks and try and do some on-chain art. And so it just helps them develop as an artist to learn this medium.
And from Async thing, I mean, I'm familiar with your platform, but I haven't seen, you know, the details. I mean, what are the things that you found artists maybe that are in other worlds doing with Async that maybe they never thought of before, you know? And how is that?
So with Async, we're seeing that it's a really effective way to tell stories, more so than you could with just a single piece of media or a GIF. So, you know, one of our pieces that, you know, it actually won NFT of the year last year was Mika Johnson's Sovereignty. You know, it's a piece about, you know, Black youth in America and, you know, how Bitcoin can affect that. And the piece itself is time sensitive. So over the course of 12 years, it tells the story of these two kids who are growing up. And, you know, the piece will actually change over the course of 12 years with anniversary effects on their birthdays, with actual like layers that pop up where the viewer can participate by, you know, donating to a Bitcoin wallet and help fund these kids' college funds. And the piece also changes the day and night, so it roots itself in the Pacific time zone. So like that's where the kids are growing up in. And yeah, it's an effective way to tell stories. And so that's what we're leaning into.
So on a similar note of kind of collaboration or competition, Do you think that NFT marketplaces are competing with the traditional fine art world, or is it a whole nother arena? And
I think it's just a longer process for them, but we're seeing traditional artists who are curious come in, and digitize their work. One artist has been a really successful story in that space, and I think he's just done work on almost all the platforms. Is Trevor Jones. He's traditionally an oil painter in the real world, and what he's done is he's collaborated with a digital artist. So he'll work with a digital artist in the space like Pac or A Lot of Money, who will digitize existing works of his in the fine art and then make it add some digital aspect to it. So I know he's done he did a piece on Async which is called ETH Boy, which was a oil painting of Vitalik. But then what A Lot of Money did was he took him in, and now the piece actually has hooks into parts of the Ethereum blockchain. So the price of gas will actually affect the color of Vitalik's clothes, and the background will rise and fall with the price of Ethereum. And the really cool aspect of this is that they made an accessories layer, which is like glasses, eye patch, pirate hat, which is a layer, and they sent that layer to Vitalik's address. So any day that Vitalik wants to, he can log into Async and modify the artwork, and modify himself. And if you see that the accessories change, you know that Vitalik himself actually did it because that's where the layer is currently owned by. So yeah, we're seeing collaborations with traditional artists being pulled into the movement.
Miguel, how do you feel about that? Do you feel it's a highly competitive or?
So it's interesting. I just absorb what everybody has said. And, Conlan mentioned artists that had dropped on Nifty Gateway too. It's kind of the competitive nature of like, he mentioned Micah Johnson and like, oh, he dropped with us, and he kind of did work with Aku and just that story and narrative. And then some of what Erick was saying is just the pool of talent for artists, and them just picking and choosing and making the rounds of going around to different marketplaces and just like encapsulating and kind of iterating on their work, which makes it more of like an ecosystem. It's great to see the artists kind of experiment and just from a smart contract level kind of implement these things. I know we worked with Daniel Arsham, who's big in the traditional art world. He did kind of something similar to what Conlan was saying, is that over the year, the art and the smart contract is programmed to change the visual, kind of eroding statue over the year, and it kind of changes with the seasons. So that's where the similarity goes with just people innovating and artists picking and choosing where they kind of decide to do the artwork. So it's more the artists kind of like deciding where they go and making the rounds and doing it. And from that perspective, and then for us, since we are the curator platform to Gateway, we kind of just like get together as a team and kind of decide like who's telling the best stories or who has the most like innovative idea. And I know when Daniel and the other artists kind of like pitch these things about just implementing different new ideas with how to like make the art more interactive with the people who collect, and just a more of a focus on their community, is kind of where we lose that like competitiveness, because we want like the ecosystem to win in the long run. So you want all these communities to kind of like get together and just bring that awareness to the space more so than just like us going after different platforms and saying that you should come drop with us because we're better, versus us saying like, no, like, okay, you told your story here, I'm sure you have a different idea and a different story to tell, so you could bring awareness to NFTs and just like drive the space forward when it comes to just like bringing digital art and the interactivity with the possibilities that you could do with just technology that we're using. So in this case, blockchain, and just how many things we could accomplish, because at the end of the day, we are just a different use case for blockchain. So it's really interesting to see what we could accomplish with the technology.
So I have a question for everyone that kind of goes along these lines. Like I'm a minority partner in agency that represents a lot of celebrities and sports teams and things like that as they're looking to do NFTs. And for example, we have like Albert Einstein's estate wanting to do original kind of piece. How would you advise someone like that as they're looking into the industry? Should they try and go and go to every marketplace and say, hey, what can you do? Go to a bunch of different artists, or what is the kind of right entry point for people who have those kind of digital assets?
Maybe I can start, because we have more than 140 IP now as part of Sandbox Virtual World. Some of them include like family-friendly brands, celebrities of music artists like Deadmau, Richie Houghton, etc. What we recommend them in general, before jumping into the idea, I need to make an NFT and sell it, is more to consider NFT as a new medium, a new platform which they can use to engage more closely with their community and their fans. So do not consider it as like a one-time thing you do, you earn revenue from, and then you're gone, but try to build a strategy of content. And what does it mean to have your content as an NFT? How is it different in terms of audience, in terms of what you offer to your fans than when you publish on Twitter, on Facebook, on TikTok, or other channels, social media channels? One, they understand that, and it's not always easy, because sometimes they're just driven by, oh, just this dropped. He sold $4 million in a day, and I want to do the same, or I want to sell more expensive. Those are not the right incentive, I think, generally speaking. They understand that, all right, there needs to be some utility, there needs to be a good story behind what I'm doing. It has to have a real meaning for my fans, so my fans will appreciate owning, and it creates a closer bond between my community and myself. I'm going to deliver value over time to them. In virtual world, it's very obvious, because those are social places. You can come with your avatar, you can chat, you can interact, you can play, you can allow users to create new adventures, new story through UGC with them. In terms of like art drops, it has to be more, I guess, much more crafted in terms of like, why do I do this drop? Why it is so special for my audience on it? And yeah, my recommendation, I would just say, like, don't just do it once. Like, think a long-term strategy.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so I would 100% agree with Sebastien, is that I think this is a new medium, and it's going to be the same way that brands or IP has, apparel, or some of them have, amusement park rides. I think NFTs is just a new medium to express that brand or IP. So it's really important, as anyone entering the crypto ecosystem, that they look at this as a long-term sort of rollout and build a strategy around that. From a business perspective, if the partnership you can establish with these marketplaces, there are key differentiations between them beyond just how much fees they take from the actual auction or sale itself. But I alluded to it earlier. What does their distribution look like? What does their web traffic look like? The real estate on the actual marketplace itself, is it the first thing that is seen when a user goes to x.com? Is it the first auction they see on the page? All those kind of factors play a very significant role in the overall sustainability and the sale of the NFT itself. So it's definitely something to consider. And saying that you would be interested in doing a series of NFTs on a marketplace and trying to establish a relationship for long-term positioning, retweets from that marketplace's Twitter account that often have a significant amount of followers, that will help increase the chances of success for that NFT. Additionally, also working within the ecosystem to make sure that it's not viewed as a cash grab. You're looking at someone who's looking to build and really develop this new medium for the long term. It's really important, especially for the crypto native buyers, which really compose a very large percentage of the larger purchases within the NFT ecosystem.
I don't know how many of you know Android Jones. He's a kind of old friend of mine on Super Rare, and did some reasonable sized drops. And he was, one of the things he was telling me from an artist perspective, it's very exciting, obviously, to see these, things go for, significant prices and see the ether appreciation and everything else. But, and generally very positive. But one of the things that is different from other marketplaces and things in the past is that every artist immediately has a price associated with them. So, if you're on social media, obviously you're used to going on Twitter, seeing everyone's follower accounts. Clubhouse also has everyone's follower accounts all the time. Now if you're on an artist marketplace, you always see the sale prices of the artist, and then having that kind of as something that's a psychological cueing, that instead of just experiencing the art itself, you're always experiencing it kind of with some kind of pricing mechanism. So I'm curious what you guys think about that dynamic within the space, and if you think it's fine or maybe has some negative attributes, and how it will evolve. Because it's different from traditional galleries, right? You don't necessarily see the price right away as well.
And that's what I was going to say. Yeah, when you walk into a gallery of fine art, generally there's like a book somewhere with like all the prices, but you can experience the art even if man, I'm not going to be able to afford this. Like, you can still go around and experience it and then be like, yeah, of course that was $50,000, but like at least you have that moment of like experience. In the NFT space, it's just so much different. We do have to strike a balance between the artist and the collector, and the NFT collector in general is a very special breed. I consider myself one from back in the day, and it's a balance. It is very price driven, but every now and then people buy stuff and mint stuff and say things that demonstrate an emotional attachment to their piece that still surprises me every now and then to hear the people that are otherwise just like, what's the next big thing to pump up. It's like every now and then they stop and they settle and they have a moment. And I think as we separate prices, as we concentrate maybe on the outside world while still keeping in mind our NFT collectors, we might be able to kind of mold into that as well.
I guess it raises a general question about the kind of longevity as well of the different, collectible classes within NFTs, and if people have a very strong emotional attachment to it or some other kind of buy-in for it, likely they're more in it. I guess presuming this from what you said, that they're more likely to stay in it kind of for the long term of that piece, whereas other things, maybe people will just kind of be following the market cycles a little bit more. Do you think that's fair, or?
I think so. I mean, I think there is a certain thing that happens when you have a lot of editions versus just one edition, in terms of creating a community around a specific piece, and then enough people can talk about it and feel special about owning it. Obviously, a lot of liquidity is involved in that as well. Like, people buy it that want it. But yeah, no, I think that over time, the collectors, the full-on speculators are always going to be around. But I do see a growing constituency of people that care about the art, and I think we should all be focused on that. I mean, I'm not, I really think that if we focus on the art itself and let the speculative mechanics just happen in the background because you can't stop it, I think that's for the best, for the long-term best of our entire ecosystem.
Miguel or anyone else who's really running an art, focused kind of marketplace stuff, do you find that do you have an internal research team or anything that looks at the possibility of kind of long-term price dynamics, and does any possibility of like a slump in the prices concern you guys, and as far as, or do you just sort of accept that as part of the overall market dynamics?
I think we just kind of accept it. A lot of these things that Erick just mentioned happens organically. Community members rally on a piece and it takes off. I think a prime example happening right now is Borget Yacht Club is a really big one. The traditional OG CryptoPunks is still really strong. Like, a lot of these micro communities just take over a particular piece or just like a project and just either take it to the moon or bring it back down to earth, and they kind of speculate amongst each other, because that's what we do. We're humans, we speculate. So once something gets hot and a lot of people get behind it, that drives price. And then, of course, like just like anything, when with art particularly, people will buy what they like. And then there's for sure, there's a lot of overlap between people who just speculate all day and kind of like buy pieces that they think will drive value and they'll be able to flip. And then there's people like me who just see something that they like. It looks pretty, it looks great. It might be a picture of of a basketball. It might be a picture of an anime person. You just buy the art that you like. And then there's that overlap where people just buy and sell and they keep the art that they like. So a lot of it just happens organically, and we kind of just go through the flow, and we kind of make sure that we always put the spotlight, at least on Nifty Gateway, with all of our artists who do end up doing drops, and kind of like market them and make sure that they're hitting all the strides in terms of promoting themselves, because it's a really big piece of it too when it comes to a successful NFT drop or NFT project. It's just being able to market, drive that idea, the narrative, and the story, and being able to share that with community members to get them excited too, and kind of like rally behind the artists and kind of like push the value up and kind of get that momentum going. So for sure, but I think a lot of it just happens organically, at least from what we see.
Yeah, at Async, I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was just saying, Mattison, you said on the research end, is that something that you focus on the kind of longer term price dynamics for these pieces, or?
Historically, I've not. So I've actually mostly focused on, the differentiation of the marketplaces. I've looked at like new NFT related tech, new models, different bonding curves, crossovers between how DeFi and NFTs are integrating. I actually don't think there's a good place within the market right now that quantifies, and I think I've asked a couple people to do newsletters on it, that quantifies the opportunities within the NFT ecosystem and really ranks things, or at least goes collection by collection, saying, what's the rarity features? How have these rarity features sold in the past? Really trying to quantify those metrics for each collection, I think would be very interesting research. I do view, by the way, it's not how when I purchase an NFT, I purchase an NFT because I like the creator and I personally like it. I'm not looking to turn it for a profit, but especially for those higher, bigger sales, I really do view them as investors. And so they are really hungry for that sort of information. I'm in Clubhouse calls with kind of new NFT projects, and when these big kind of NFT whales come in, they're always asking, what's the rarity, what's the distribution look like, etc. And so anything that quantifies that sort of data, I think would be a huge value add.
Conlan, you were going to say something as well, or?
No, I mean, it was kind of on the previous topic, but I mean, I think it's important for the platforms. We at Async, we do this. We're really focused on the art, because when artists come and look at these platforms, what they see is communicated, like what community they want to be part of. And so, if prices are really up in front for the artists, then artists, we're going to draw the artists who are just there to try and try to sell as much as they can. Whereas if we showcase we're really focusing on the art and the story this tells and where they innovated, then we'll draw the type of artists who are drawn to that. So it's good to focus on, always keep cognizant of what community we want to draw in from the art world.
Yeah, I'm really curious because the community angle has been mentioned a lot of times, what engagement strategies there are for community depending on the type of marketplace that it is. So it sounds like, Miguel, you said that it is largely rallying behind a particular artist and a kind of story, whereas Sebastien, I imagine for you there's other kind of collaborative dynamics that are around the actual creation of elements kind of in your world, and probably a little bit different for each one, and how also it's a little bit quantifying stuff, but how sticky those different type of engagement things are, because for example, some different type of platform engagement. I'm sure each of you have your own kind of KPIs for your platform, but it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about how you come up with the KPIs that come to active user engagement or whatever else. So
yes, if I may add a few interesting things in first of all, marketplace are not just a role of selling NFTs. They are really shaping how people envision those NFTs and the format they're seeing. So the fact that we do not necessarily have a culture of you need to sell out everything, but it's okay sometimes to not sell the art is great. The fact that you think also in terms of the marketplace has specific formats, specific ways for the art to be expressed. It could be through video games. It could be through composition of art, dynamic, programmable, asynchronous, that define new ways of art that are born from those marketplaces, enabling the artist to express, to use creation tool in a new manner. And I find that amazing as well. And it expands the definition of what people can find is art or find it's collectible or can appreciate. And the last thing I want to mention is it's really interesting how communities are blending and bringing across all those marketplaces. They are not segregated. So people are not just, there's always been in technology or other industries I'm in favor of DVD or in favor of this format. I'm in favor in this and that. Here, I think people like to have a lot of choices, to be exposed to a lot of different content and pick from where they want. And they do not necessarily follow one artist here, absolutely, etc. It's really breaking down the monopolies that existed before in the space.
So we're coming a little bit towards the end of our time here, and I wonder, just give each person an opportunity to say something about that they're really excited about, when it comes to their own platform, the NFT space in general, maybe something about the community and collaboration elements that they're experiencing. I guess starting with myself, I'm just very excited about the metaverse and things that are evolving there when it comes to building new types of virtual worlds, and particularly the fusion behind AI-generated art and things that are sort of just generative in nature, and then sort of the fan-built art, the sort of type of Minecraft dynamics where people come together and build future worlds. So it's not the only thing I'm excited about in the space, but it's probably the thing I'm most excited about.
Yeah, and I'll kick it off. Yeah, I'll kick it off here for us at least. And I think what I'm most excited about is that just finding the hidden gems, just people that come on to the platforms or just in general the NFT space that come with these new ideas. And I think we talked about it earlier, how to use the technology, blockchain, smart contracts in general, and just kind of iterate and implement it into the NFT art. And I think I'm with you there, Joel and Sebastien, just the metaverse, taking these virtual lands and just kind of implementing NFTs into it, digital collectibles, art, etc., and just building it out. I know Sandbox is one, Decentraland, Rare Rooms is a smaller one, but just seeing all these different metaverses pop up and people being able to interact. And hopefully the VR aspect of it gets bigger and bigger too. Just throwing on a set of goggles and just kind of looking at the art that you've collected yourself and just kind of see it in front of you as you would physically. So a lot to be excited about for sure. But, always the main focus is the art. Just seeing all the new stuff coming down the pipeline and people creating and just seeing what the future holds for us at least.
Exciting. Sebastien?
Yeah, well, very obviously, I would be biased. As we are building this decentralized gaming virtual world, for us, the metaverse is really the place where your NFTs are going to take life, and you'll be able to interact with them, play, socialize, expose them, maybe use them in new manner. And all the communities around, all the marketplace that contribute to bring new artists into the space, all the artists who are entering any of those marketplaces, but after staying within the NFT ecosystem, at the end of the day, everyone wins. So that's, I think, maybe my conclusion, why I think nobody is competing in this ecosystem, because we are all enlarging the audience in this still really nascent market. And everyone, there's no right, no wrong. It's all about how do we create value for people who are willing to be dedicated to join this big movement and fall down the rabbit hole of decentralization. And that's what's most important, in my opinion.
What about you, Conlan? What do you?
So for me, of course, I'm always excited to see what creators are coming up with. And like every morning when I wake up, the first thing I do is I check the art page to see what new things people have made. It's kind of like Christmas every morning. But in terms of what I'm excited for the second half of the year, it may sound a little strange, but I'm actually looking forward to a little bit more quiet in the NFT space for a bit. I was really excited, of course, to see it spike up and people get excited back in March and February. But we launched in early last year during a relatively quiet period, and it's the quiet periods where I think the builders really are able to kind of like focus and really focus on what gets released and rally around that. And so I'm looking forward to a little bit of cool down and a breather moment after the past few months.
Erick, what are you excited about?
I would second that. I've never experienced, as a founder, I've never experienced a calm time, and I feel like I yearn for it, just because I feel like we're just catching up. We're just playing catch up like every single day. But I mean, another thing I think that's really important to think about is that a lot of the NFT collectors, a lot of our constituents, a lot of the people that are kind of keeping us, like the reason why we're having this panel, it's so easy to get sucked into this vacuum of the NFT space as it is now. And if you zoom out, it's just so tiny. And to me, I think there's just, maybe it's just cheesy, but I think there's just so much opportunity to collaborate and build something huge together, so that when things are not maybe as hot for everybody, there's like just this front of people that just love what they're doing and love art and love digital content. And I just look forward to any opportunity for collaborating and interoperating between all the different platforms. It like the goosebumps that I get from when I see cool stuff happening on every single other platform, not just the ones here, but the other ones. And I'm just like, man, like there's just this opportunity. I think it's so early that there's just this opportunity to do something great. I don't know what it is, but I really look forward to hopefully interoperating with all you guys.
Mattison, what about you?
Yeah, so I actually think gaming has really taken off. A lot spearheaded by Axie Infinity, which, I mean, I tend to believe the numbers they're putting out, but they're claiming 100 to 120,000 daily active users. I've watched the organic growth from the beginning. There's almost more search, Google search is for Axie Infinity than World of Warcraft. And I think it's having a little bit of a mainstream moment. And so I'm really excited to continue to watch how NFTs can be utilized in gaming in very innovative ways.
Yeah, I think it's very exciting, to see. We talk with a lot of, celebrities and things like that have, tens of millions of followers or what have you. It's very interesting and exciting to see the types of use cases that are, slightly different from what's happening on the NFT world now and the kind of customer requirements. And I guess I spent a long time in the enterprise space before I was in the blockchain space, where you were, building back from, user requirements, but thinking about how things like, the pay-per-view networks of today work, and how they could be reconfigured with, NFTs, or how, the OnlyFans world works and how that could be redone with NFTs, or how, different types of real estate, transactions go and how that could be redone with NFTs. It's, a lot of this stuff is still in the maybe longer term infrastructure building kind of mode, as opposed to, ready for consumption. But those are the things I think that, when we look at what's going to happen next, what the next sort of boom cycle is going to look like, I think it'll be really interesting to see, some of these larger kind of adoption curves. And even though personally I'm very excited about the digital art part of it, I think there's going to be some, big moving things that are a little bit out of what we've seen so far. So that's and I think there's a few, just to conclude on some things that we've noted for this out of this thing. I mean, one that Mattison pointed out is that there's not a lot of research right now that's going on, at least that's public, on the sort of scarcity, rarity of different kind of attributes and the kind of syndication distribution. So that's kind of an interesting kind of open area potentially for someone to deliver a product. There's just a lot of interesting things that I think we all could learn and about kind of community engagement and how important that is, as well as the things that get people excited in the space and kind of embracing that. as well as just the sort of collaborative elements of, the sort of long-term community building and using NFTs as a strategy for that rather than simply kind of a one-off piece. So I think there's some really, important things that everyone on this panel has shared. And I'm, personally, my conclusion is that even if there is a very, clear, quantified thing between particular marketplaces and a competitive edge, particularly for, some types of artists going around and, jumping around, there's also just a tremendous amount of opportunity for collaboration and things that people are doing just because of how differentiated these different marketplaces are, and different types of arts, and like we're talking about layering, games, generative art, kind of other types of community engagement, big ticket curated drops. So all very exciting and sort of a little bit different from each other.